This is a Leo. This is a David. And in this video, I'm going to show you how you can teach your dog to stay, as well as offer you some tips if your dog suffers from something called separation anxiety, which is what Leo does. So we just got done talking about this off camera. Sit. Leo actually has accidents in the house. And an accident is just that. It's not intentional. It is, by definition, an accident. Marking is different, where the dog actually is intentionally marking your house. But the dog also can have not be potty trained. And I find that's frequently the case. That's different than a dog that has separation anxiety, losing control of its bowels. Separation anxiety is essentially a panic attack. The dog doesn't have any experience being calm and confident being alone. And so this is why I'm going to teach you how to stay, or show you how to teach him how to stay, so that he can practice being alone while you're here, but not in direct eyesight with him, and help him practice being calm while he's quasi alone. So whenever I have a dog that fails, I try to do something in the easiest version possible. So the easiest possible is for him is to practice stay in the next room eventually when you're home. But we have to start off at the beginning. But before we get to stay, there's some tips for separation anxiety. First of all, when we leave, so again, he jumps up on me, I freeze. And then I can pet him when he gets off. So first of all, do you guys narrate when you're going to leave? Leo, you got to go to work, buddy. You going to hang in there? You going to be a strong buddy? You do that sort of thing? Don't do that sort of thing. So that you make it a big production when you come and go, and that amplifies things. So when you leave, just leave. And just pick up your stuff and just walk out the door. Don't even say goodbye. It's not rude in the dog world. He doesn't know what you need.
Yeah. Well, we do put on the diaper, and I think we're probably going to have to continue doing that.
So what I would do is, we don't want the diaper to also be indication of I'm leaving. So I would put the diaper on at times when you're home too. So just putting the diaper on. Otherwise, what I'm going to talk about in a second will make sense. Dogs learn to start panicking about you leaving long before you actually leave the house. So the first thing is we put on our uniform. And we're on a certain schedule, and the dog kind of recognizes those schedules. And then you sit in a certain place, you put on your scrubs if you're a nurse or whatever it is. And the dog's like, oh, those clothes, the only time he puts those clothes on is right before he leaves. And then we pick up our sunglasses. And then we grab our wallet. And then we grab our car keys, which typically has a sound to it. That's demand barking. That's a lack of rules and structure. I have treats. He's like, give me the treat, damn it. Well, you're going to get a lot of them, but you have to earn them, buddy. So when I have a dog that has these things to get the dog worked up before you actually leave, it's already starting to freak out in the house. So do you notice that? He starts breathing a little heavy, pacing a little bit.
He literally just sits there and stares in sadness.
Okay. Well, there's something called anthropomization, which is a hard word to say, but it actually means projecting of human emotions onto dogs. And I see people do it where they look how miserable my dog is. I look at the dog and it looks neutral. Doesn't look upset or not. But if he does recognize this, he might be getting upset. So what you want to do is recreate the steps individually. So if picking up the keys causes him to get up, so go over there, pick up the keys, put them down, and then sit down and watch more TV. You're getting up to go check, mail. Go over here, pick up your sunglasses, put them on, step to the door, open the door, grab the package, come back, put your sunglasses here. So the idea is we want to kind of disassociate these things. The only time a lot of dogs see us putting our shoes in a certain place or grabbing our keys is right before we leave. So again, they start getting worked up before we actually leave. So you want to systematically deprogram. That would be my nail. You want to systematically deprogram them and create an association. So first we do it individually. Just pick up the keys and put them down. Then keys and sunglasses. Keys, sunglasses, and purse if it's Alex. Putting your shoes on. So you might want to kind of take note, or some people will actually set up a camera like in the corner of their place, and then go through their morning ritual. And you realize, I do this, I put my cup here, I do this, I turn the camera on, I do this, with the radio. And so you see all these individual steps that are leading to you leaving. And you want to practice those out of context, or practice those without the context of you actually leaving. And so that way the dog understands, just because he picks up his keys doesn't mean we're leaving. And then when you come home, also ignore the dog. And I talked about this off camera. We want to just pretend like when we come in, if he's all excited and you pet him or give him any attention, you even tell him, calm down. He still thinks, I'm getting attention. So instead, when we come home, we ignore him completely. We walk in. If he jumps up on us, we go like this. And as soon as he gets off, then we continue our thing, or we can pet him. So what we want to understand is, when you're excited, you're invisible to us. When you jump up on us, it causes us to freeze. And when you're calm and balanced, we reach over and we pet you. So after enough repetitions, he's going to start offering that calm behavior on its own. And excited is not necessarily happy for dogs. Most people confuse it that way, but it's not always the case. Dog can be happy and calm. It can be excited and not happy. If I'm going to have surgery, you can bet I don't want my surgeon to be excited. I want them to be calm and bored, practically. All right. So if your dog, so when you come home, Don't make a big deal. When you leave, don't make a big deal. If he jumps up on you, freeze. And if he gets too excited, you can actually step right back out the door. All right, so those are tips and tricks about the dogs with separation anxiety to help stop making it worse. Now, I'm going to show you how to teach a dog to stay. Now, I teach a dog to stay in 3 stages. Most people try to teach all 3 of these things together, and it makes it hard. If I am learning how to do a skill, I don't learn to drive, like driving, I don't learn to drive on the 10 or the 405 at 5 o'clock traffic, I'm sorry, it's LA, 3 o'clock traffic on a Friday of Memorial Day weekend. That's going to be the worst traffic ever. I'm going to have so much pressure on my shoulders, I'm guaranteed to fail. So what I do is when we learn to drive, we first learn by watching our mom and dad drive and watching it on TV. Then we take driver's ed and we learn about it in a book. Then we get in the back of a car and we watch somebody else do it. And then we drive in a parking lot with an instructor that can put his feet on the gas or the brakes and give us tips and suggestions. It's not the real world. So if I hit the gas instead of the brake, I don't launch myself into the car ahead of me. Once I gain confidence of driving in a parking lot, then we maybe drive in the parking lot with cones. And I've got to stay between the cones. And then eventually I go to a street with no cars, and then a street with parked cars, and then a street with slow driving cars. And I'm gradually going to make it more challenging, but only after I establish my confidence. When it comes to the stay, most people try to teach this dog to stay for duration, distance, and distractions all at once. And that makes them 3 times harder than it needs to be. So the first stage is duration. You want your dog to stay for up to 5 minutes. Now, it's hard for dogs to stay because they're just like, you have a handful of treats. Why are you not giving them to me? I'm going to sit, I'm going to paw it, I'm going to lick at it. I'm going to do all these different things to try to get the treats. So he doesn't understand why. So now we're going to do the first stage of it. So let's come over here, buddy. So I have a bunch of treats in this hand, and I'm going to give him the stop sign, and I'm going to count to, in this case, I'm going to count to 3. And then I'm going to do 3, 6, 9, 12. We'll start off at 3. But we'll see how he does. Sit, stay. 1, 2, 3. Stay. When I deliver the treat, I'm holding my hand out again to make this a hand signal. And I wait for him to be done, and I say, sit, stay. Stay. So if you notice, I looked away. If you stare at your dog the whole time, as soon as you break eye contact, that's what they're practicing for. As soon as you break eye contact, they'll release themselves. So right from the get-go, look at him and look away. All right, stay. Stay. Now, at first he started in a sit and then he moved to a down. If you notice, he always goes to a down. Start him in a down. Stay. Stay. Now I'm done and I want to associate a command word. I like using fun words. So what I do is go like this. Parole is the word I like to use. I say break, release, freedom, and parole. If you have multiple dogs, giving each dog a unique command word is helpful. So you practice 3 times, 6 times, 12 times, however many times you want to practice. Always end it on a good one. Practice really outside until you get up for a lot of distance should be less than 90 seconds for most exercises. This one eventually want them to stay for 5 minutes. So you want to do, maybe start at 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Next time you do 4s, 4, 8, 12, 16, 18, whatever it is. And then you get to the point where make sure you're not frustrated, the dog's not frustrated. If the last thing that the dog did was you were frustrated, he's frustrated, he will not want to do it again the next time. So keep it positive and happy. And then when you get done, so let's say you practice 5 times in a row, then you throw the treat away at the very end to signify we are done. So stay means stay until you hear one word, parole, release, freedom, whatever words you guys want to use. Wait means wait until you hear the next command, which could be come, sit, down, or something along those lines. So most people actually teach the dog a down or a wait command and not teaching them an actual stay. Stay can actually save a dog's life if it has a proper stay. But to do stay, it has to have a 100% success rate. This is why I always... Tornado is what I call that one.
When I taught him that, I tried to teach him roll over, and he just did that, and I went with it. So that's roll over right there.
I would say tornado or hurricane or typhoon is the word that I use for that. And I actually teach people whose dogs get humped at the dog park to do that. So if a dog mounts your dog and you teach your dog to spin, it dismounts the other dog. And I've never had a dog get dismounted more than 3 times before it looks for another dog to hump. Mm-hmm. I'll show you how to teach your dog to go over in a second when we finish this. So the idea for this, always, you need a 100% success rate. Always count in your head. If you go from like 20 to 25 seconds, at 24 he gets up and walks away, then you need to know what mark you were at. So next time you practice at 23 or 22. Always back up a step for failure. But again, do not push for failure. I see people do this, I'm just going to stay until he stops. Well, then he's practicing not staying, what we call an auto release. I'm not giving him a treat, I'm just letting to sniff him so he doesn't bark so he can hear me. So always count in your head or use your stopwatch so you know exactly where you're at second by second. You want to get to the point where you can be up to 5 minutes of staying with the dog right here and not jumping on top of you. Once you get to 5 minutes, then we're ready to start doing distance. Now I'll show you a distance real quick for here. Come here, buddy. Sit. So now I'm going to be standing. So I say stay. I take 1 step back, I count to 2, then I come back, stay. Now I'm going to do it 2 steps. So I stay first, 1, 2, and I count to 4. And again, don't look at the dog in the eye the whole time. Then approach, stay. And when you get done, parole. Or whatever the word is. Don't throw it on the couch. I just threw it on the couch. I'll get that for him. So, well, I think you did get it. Otherwise, we'll find it after we're done filming. So, so that's duration. Now, or excuse me, that's distance. Now, when you're doing distance, at first it's 1 step. I start out my Genesis. I take 1 step back and I double the number of steps. So I take 4 steps back. I would count to 8. So that's kind of how I start, but it's going to change depending on how well he does. There's nothing wrong. I had one puppy that I had to spend a week doing 1 second stays. As soon as I went to 2 seconds, he would get up or move around. Now the book says they have to stay in the area, but not necessarily the same position. So if you start him with a sit and he goes to an LAY, I would just start him in the LAY. But I have higher criteria for my dogs because I do this professionally. Okay, so once you get to the point where you're at least 15 feet away, now we're ready to start incorporating being out of sight. Now I'm going to have you keep the camera right there. You can tilt it up so you can see me. But let's imagine that there's a wall that comes to right here. So you can't see me from the camera if I'm on this side of the wall. The wall extends here. So let's say the dog's there. I say stay, and I back up and I get to the point where I'm going to start. I've got at least 15 feet away. The dog's where the camera is. I step here. I'm out of sight for 1 second. I step back and I go back and give the dog a treat. So the first time you go out of sight, you're only out of sight for 1 second, and then immediately step back, walk back to the dog, and give it the treat. Now, the dog is warmed up for this because we first did up to 5 minutes. And also one other thing was stay. Don't always practice in the same spot. Practice here, there, all over the place. So he's able to do it. But don't do it with distractions either. So nobody should be eating. There should be no dogs barking on TV or dogs outside or anything that's going to distract him. That makes it harder. So we're doing this each D separately. First for duration, up to 5 minutes. Don't go to distance until you've achieved 5 minutes consistently. So then the idea would be to put him in, stay in maybe in your bedroom, and you start walking out. And let's say this is the doorway. The dog's over there. I step right outside of the line of sight, and then I go right back to the dog, give it the treat. So at first it's 1 second out of sight, then 2 seconds, and this is why we don't stare at him the whole time. So when we go out of sight, he doesn't freak out and come and find us. We want to get to the point where, and don't do the out of sight until you're at least 15 feet away and he's pretty comfortable with that. And I would also have somebody maybe in the watching him. Some people will have a security camera or something like that where you can actually watch him. So if he starts to get up, you kind of know what count, and keep doing the count when you're doing distance as well. So the idea is eventually it gets to the point where you step out of line of sight for up to 5 minutes or so, and he stays there. So now he's doing a job and he's practicing being alone in the room, knowing that you're here. So when it comes to dogs, once they can achieve something for 2 hours, you don't have to practice beyond that. I'm not saying you have to practice for 2 hours. When you leave, you're not actually going to put him as stay and leave because that's going to teach him auto release as well. The idea for the stay is to help him practice being calm when he's alone. Again, the easiest version possible. So what I would have you do then is I would have you put him in stay in your bedroom and then come out here and watch TV. It gets to the point where you can watch TV for half an hour with him staying in your bedroom. So the next stage is you want to basically teach him that leaving the house is, well, the next stage actually is to do it for distractions. For distractions, what you want to do is just find a mild distraction. So maybe you're doing the stay in here and you have somebody crinkle a bag over there. Or something just a very, very low level of stimulus that's slightly hard for him to deal with, but not so irresistible that he's going to stop what he's doing. And then you go from a crinkling a bag to opening a can of dog food, or you gradually make the criteria slightly more realistic or difficult until you get to the point where you can be like throwing steak on the ground and he's like, shit, I'd like to get that, but I have to wait here and stay. All right, the next stage is what you're going to do is once you can get to the point where you can stay for 5 minutes. Is that Alex?
I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. There's just a girl walking up.
It very well can be. I have no idea.
We'll see. So basically, the next stage is we want to. We've taught the dog to stay for duration, distance, and distraction. Now what we want to do is and you can do distractions like when people are walking back and forth by in the alley, or here we staying and the door's open, and you have them on a leash just to make sure you don't run away. But this way, you're helping to practice amongst distractions. That's definitely not going to get a treat for you. So the next stage for the separation anxiety is you want to practice being calm. So what we do is we come over here and just open the door, exit, and turn around, come right back in, and go sit down. So at first when we're leaving, we're only leaving for 1 second. And we turn around immediately and come back in. Next time for 2 seconds. And then 3 seconds. Most people try like, okay, well, the dog's doing pretty good. Let's go get a quick dinner, and then we'll come back from place on Beverly or whatever. Well, now the dog's going to freak out. It's going to practice freaking out. So this way, and you have a security camera. So I would like to get to the point of where you're practicing having your dog be alone with you just right outside this door. So if he does start doing this or barking, you know how, and I do start stopwatch, so you know exactly how long. But the idea is to work out there. And we want to get to the point where he is staying there for another thing. That's called a negative punishment, which means you deduct something from the equation. So if he starts barking, you get up and leave the room and close the door behind you. I would do it here, but this video is already pretty long, so we're going to wrap it up here in a sec. So the idea is now you're going to start, you've desensitized him first for all the individual stimulus, as I said, like dust. Then we've taught him to stay, and he's practiced staying. Then we're practicing leading for progressively longer and longer periods of time. I'm just going to do this to keep him quiet so we don't get a noise complaint. But the idea is eventually get to the point where you can be out there for longer and longer periods of time. But go out there, put like a lemonade. Go out there with your iPad. You can still watch your Wi-Fi and all that. Put your headphones on so he doesn't even know you're out there. But you can watch him through your screen. And the idea is to gradually elongate it. Now, once you get to 2 hours, the book says you should never have to practice beyond that. But you shouldn't even have to do it to that extent. Now, one last thing is before you leave, exercising him before you leave is a good idea, but there's a caveat to it. We don't want to exercise him and then immediately leave because it takes them about 10 to 15 minutes to calm themselves down. And a lot of times they're going to need a potty break and all the rest of that stuff. So basically, if you're going to exercise him, make sure he has about 10 minutes before you practice these sort of things to get him kind of to recover. All right, any questions?
Makes sense.
All right, come here, buddy. Sit. Well, this is a Leo. This is a David, Aquarius actually. And this is these are some tips and tricks on how you can teach your dog to stay, as well as some bonus tips to help if your dog suffers some separation anxiety.